So I need to make a video for DJDELAY because I just saw the one that you made about Rudy Giuliani and his defamation case, and the amount settlement. And ultimately, I just want you to realize something. My reason that I'm commenting on it is because of the factor that you're literally so hyper-focused on one issue that you don't even understand the amount of damage that not covering the plethora of issues actually go on. All right? When it comes to Rudy Giuliani, yes, him representing Purdue Pharma, considering the opioid crisis, that right there ended up being a mass casualty situation. And I feel like there are not enough people comparing the opioid epidemic to gun violence throughout the country. All right? That right there, that's a message that'll stick. Not to mention that, when it comes to Rudy Giuliani, that's not even close to the worst. All right? I want you to understand something. See, you're white. So in Giuliani's book, you're not a target. All right? Ultimately, if you're Hispanic, like I, or you're black, and you were living in New York, yeah, ultimately you were a target from the fucking get-go. All right? He was the one who actually ended up thinking up the stop and frisk policy, with forced identification, that literally ended up going ahead and creating, a lot of the tactics that corrupt cops end up using to go ahead and racially profile people, while at the same time trying to avoid human rights violations. Literally, it was, pretty much his policies post 9/11 that went and basically turned the entire country into one giant, potential terrorist threat at any moment. Climate, all right? Guy was a fucking grandstander, but would do anything that he could to go ahead and profit off every single bit of it. No, literally. The fucked up thing is, I think of the shit that I ended up doing in my life because I've done a lot of good. I've also done a lot of bad. I recognize that. But we're talking... You tend to not know thy enemy. Alright? While at the same time wanting to go ahead and speak up on issues. If you're going to speak on Giuliani, recognize something. Alright? Giuliani was literally the byproduct of a more fucked up corruption, policy that would get ignored to go ahead and try to get the feds a perfect conviction rate, regardless of the factor of how many, law enforcement officers that ended up being quote unquote bad apples that ended up going and proving that their entire fucking caseload, that they were constantly using selective prosecution and racial profiling to go ahead and pad their arrest records. All right? You're ignoring the over-excessive bail. You're ignoring the factor of civil asset forfeiture, of literally people's properties getting stolen away from them. You're ignoring the factor of white-collar crime barely getting prosecuted. Literally, there's so much. And the fucked up thing is, Giuliani, when it comes to New York, wasn't the only, politician. All right? You forget about the factor of Elliot Spitzer, which most people don't even think about that motherfucker anymore, but that's a really good thing. To be blunt, like Bloomberg, yeah, that money, there is nothing good about any of that money. All right? And understand, a lot of the tactics that end up getting used in politics, because unfortunately politics really is one of the biggest hubs of corruption that there is. One of the stupidest decisions that I ever made was actually going ahead and getting a job handing out fucking pamphlets for a politician, for a local Democratic committee. And literally ended up getting attacked over and over and over and over and over again. And understand, if you end up going ahead and giving policy ideas that would actually help those politicians' constituents that they're not capable of profiting off of, you're a target because you're threatening their power. And understand, there are tactics that they go ahead and use to go ahead and not only test your moral turpitude, but also go ahead and weaponize, because no matter what decision you end up going ahead and making, you're in a no-win situation, and you're fucked either which way. Like, for example, that little fucking purity test of going ahead and having a newborn in a car in fucking 90-degree weather with all the windows rolled up. Alright? Ultimately, you sit by and you watch that kid bake. Alright? Your options are, you go ahead, call the cops, wait for the cops to go ahead and respond. By the time that they respond, that kid might have ended up dying of heat stroke. Or, you go ahead, you act on instinct. You go ahead and you break that window so that way that kid doesn't end up going ahead and baking, that there's a little bit of actual ventilation so that way that kid doesn't end up dealing with heat stroke while you go ahead and wait for emergency services to get there. But once you end up going ahead and breaking that window because of the factor that you didn't want that kid to end up dying knowing that you could have ended up saving their fucking life, understand, you breaking that window, you're getting charged with attempted grand theft auto. At that point, you literally got a record. You're looked at as the lowest of the fucking low in society. All because of the factor that you got put in a position that your option was watch some random little kid that had no power in the situation whatsoever literally bake like a fucking Thanksgiving turkey, or end up going ahead and looking like you lift cars for a living. That's the fucking games that they play. So ultimately, if you think that, because you always end up talking about, gang activity and all that shit, you think they're fucking evil. No. I'm sorry, gangs versus politicians, gangs are fucking kittens in comparison to the bullshit that politicians do. The difference is, ultimately, those politicians, they have those gangs in their pocket in some form or another. Especially if those, whether current gang members or former gang members, you gotta remember, if they have any fucking kids, those politicians could do whatever the fuck they want to basically be like, hey, listen, you're either going to do exactly what the fuck I want you to do, and, you might get out of it with your freedom, depending on how I feel, because it's literally on my own fucking whims, or you're never going to fucking see your kid again. You really, really need to analyze what you end up commenting on. Alright?